You don't really need any of these Fuji wagons of $50, $100 million. That's all you need. If you need more, if you feel that you need to work more after $50 million, you have a problem. People who keep working after $50 million have actually two problems. They fall under two different categories. First of all, they haven't found what they like, which is the small issue. And the bigger issue is that they found what they like is actually keep working, which is the Elon's problem, Musk's problem, Zuck's problem, which is a big problem. Right? Why you keep working after $50 million? Remember, the guy had 100 mil. He put 50 into Tesla, 50 into SpaceX, and he left with like another 50, and he split that 50, 25 each into both companies, which meant that he could have stopped working back then. So if you have problems, keep working after $50 million, you have a serious issue, my friend. It's more issues than the person who have less than $100 in his bank account. That's what I'm trying to explain if you really think about it. Because think about if you keep working after $50 million, like I said, the problems that you have to think or take care of are only into two categories, right? You don't really need any of these. The point I'm trying to make over here is that if you have $50 or $100 million, you can borrow against the $50 or $100 million. You can borrow on 60 or 80%, depending where you put the money on, depending how liquid the portfolio is. If you bought real estate worth, whatever, $100 million, sure, they will give you 80% of this. You can borrow against 8% of it. If you have stocks, they can give you probably 60%. The less liquid or the higher risk and volatility is in your portfolio, the lower the amount you can actually borrow against. But that's a video for a completely different topic. The point I'm trying to make is that you can live exceptionally large and fun and cool and exceptionally satisfying life. Fuji wagons, not with the yacht that you saw over there, but definitely you can have a very, very large life with $50 to $100 million ready to go on the market. You can effectively, rent one of these bad boys, probably, 2-3 days per year. Let's say you pick 3 very nice, shiny days. You pick up the boat, you go to Long Island, you go to Southampton, you take your friends, you balling. But that's it. You don't have to maintain all the nonsense. You have to spend liquid, $50, $75 million for the yacht. It doesn't make any sense. That's what I'm trying to explain. $50 million is basically where you have to stop. And after $50 million, then you call me. Right? At $50 million and up, you call me, we structure something. But then, like I said, I know people with less. I know people with $20 to $30 million. They have $10 million into treasuries, which is the cap. You cannot buy more than $10 million in treasuries, right? So they collect between $300,000 and $400,000 per year, completely passively, just by yielding, right? Because the yield on treasuries is changing, right? Because of the interest rates, the Fed fund rates. What I'm trying to explain is that you can live off very, very comfortably with $10 million invested. And this is not a financial advice, because we don't do financial advising over here. What I'm trying to explain is that if you really think about it, right? A lot of uneducated or not financially literate people, if they have $20 million, they will be buying yachts, they will be buying, apartments and so on. So, but like I said, I have someone with $20 to $30 million net worth. He put $10 million in treasuries last year, and then he do the rollover because he got a 6-month treasury and then the rollover. Like I said, depending on the interest, $300,000-$400,000. And remember, treasuries are tax efficient financial instrument. And it's backed by the full faith of the United States government. Whatever this means, right? But what I'm trying to explain is that you probably heard this many, many times, but you don't know what this means. You have people who are exceptionally good in money management are the people who live the best. Not the people who make the most, not people who save the most. People who know how to manage little money that they have or little money that they earn are the people who extract as much value from the money, right? Like I said, I know people, this guy, $20 million net worth, he lives better. I know a guy whose net worth is probably around, he sold a company, he sold an app, he probably north of $50 million. And the guy doesn't live balling life. He's like renting, he's like, counting points and doing the business class and skipping. That's a completely different story. Compared with the guy who's like the guy who's have half net worth, right? We're talking about, like I said, 20 million, the guy's like 60 million. The lifestyle is completely different. And again, I'm not saying this because I'm genius, but because I'm the smartest guy in the room. No, not really. I'm just talking out of my experience, my knowledge, what I've seen with my personal eyes, and what I really know it works. Right? This is not some. Let me rephrase this. This is not some $400,000 and per year Wall Street Steve Jobs, flying first class, living comfortable. I'm talking about liquid, right? $50-100 million. Oh. Yes, you can own your personal jet with $50 million net worth. Yes, you can. You're gonna buy a pre-owned jet, $8 million. You're gonna have, annual maintenance on 1.1, 1.2. Then you're going to have, probably if you use it maybe 10, 12 times, another 500,000-600,000. You understand the point, right? We're talking about not to waste time and not to overextend yourself, not to overspend. Because, like I said, if you are very, very good in money management, I'm not rich, but I'm very good in money management. So I live comfortably without being super rich or rich at all, right? Which again proves the point that I early on understood that managing money the most efficient way is the way to go if you want to have a good life. Because you cannot choose in the beginning, I want to have a good life and I want to be super rich. No, that's diabolical, right? You want to be super rich, you don't have a very bad life. Look at Iwan, he has a very, very bad life, right? So once we understand how the formula works, otherwise you're just working against yourself, working against your interests. You can't, same thing like people who are, didn't have, background of economics or finance. They talk about they want to get wealthier, but they don't want debt, right? They want to get their companies getting bigger and bigger, but they don't want debt. Which, again, diabolical. Both things are including debt, both things require debt, both things are effectively require leverage. Not your own personal funds to grow the business, to grow your company, to grow your network. Same thing I just explained to you. How to live comfortably with $10 million, $50 or $100 million. By again, leveraging someone else's funds. Living off loans. Like, that's not a news. I just, pull the curtain on some details, how the system actually works. But if you understand that, that's a completely different story. Because remember, at the end of the day, you have to understand that the difference between making $100 million and trying to live off them, or making 50 and trying to live off them, it's a completely different number. Just figuratively speaking, anyone can live off $300,000. Right? Put $10 million cap, which is the general bid per account from a treasuries. When the treasury issues new treasury, right? You can bid the max you can buy it to $10 million worth of it. And like I said, I know people who have done it. So this is not some, speculation, but is it working? Is it real? Do they really pay, And this is how Wall Street has been hedging against the market, down on the market risk the more. When the market overheats and when all the stocks are valuations of the companies go through the roof, they don't know what to buy. And when they know what to buy, they have to buy something, right? They have to yield something. That's why they go into paper. That's the whole point of it. It's not that it's their choice. It's not that they did some calculations, they run some formulas, some simulations. No, that's the way how, when you don't know what to do, but your job is to make money for your clients, you go on paper. Go on government paper, go on effectively. Even the corporate paper, it's worse. You see, all the AI companies, all technology companies, they have to raise capital. That's why they issue, convertible notes, they issue bonds. But the math on corporate debt, it's completely different than government bond. It's one thing to buy corporate bonds, it's different to buy government bonds, treasuries, right? It's a completely different story. But I feel I'm making the video too broad and maybe too complex for a lot of people. So just focus on the first 8 minutes of the video. Cheers.